So I think I'd like to term this particular sort of question in the realm of moving beyond I'm fine. Yeah, moving beyond I'm fine. Whenever you ask someone how you doing, what you get back generally is a variation of I'm fine. And if you know that that's not right, there's some things you can do, and there's some things you probably shouldn't do. But I'd like to talk about this a little bit because I think it's really good. So when you're asking people, like when you get asked, Tom, how are things, how often do you reply with the gospel truth of precisely how you're doing?
Never.
Yeah, me too, right? I thought so, because often it's just not part of the social contract to launch into a conversation about all the things that you've got going wrong for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the
Absolutely.
time I'll say, yeah, good. How are you? Yeah. It's the expectation that when we're passing in the corridor or we're just, chatting generally at the beginning of a conversation about something else, that we don't launch into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be as guilty as anyone in responding this way. But how often are you left sometimes when you get that response, Tom, when you're left with an instinctual feeling that something is not right? And do you know what to do, how to follow up that I'm fine, or, yeah, fine, thanks, how are you? Sometimes we're left with that sort of feeling, aren't we? That sort of instinctual feeling that they're not fine.
I think some people are very good at hiding it. Others, there is, like you say, there is a tell, and there is definitely something not right. But how do you approach those conversations? That's a difficult one.
Very good question. This is one that I get asked a lot. I get asked for advice on this particular problem an awful lot. And so you won't be surprised, I've got a few things to talk about. I think I've got 5 things to talk about, actually. So we'll go through each one in turn. And some of these I've come up with, some of these have come from friends, because I'm really lucky to have a close circle of friends that, people love me, man. So it's great that they notice when I'm dipping and I'm throwing out those stock phrases, like I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
They can sense that anyway, but we'll get to that. So the first one is ask again, maybe with different words. That's what I would say. I sometimes would throw out there, are you sure? Nice, short, succinct, to the point, demonstrating that you care, demonstrating that you really genuinely want to know more. And then perhaps there's an opportunity there for them to open up. It's a nice, safe and straightforward way to enter into a conversation. Are you sure? Ask with genuine empathy and care and understanding.
There's a real nice mental health campaign that is all about asking twice as well, which is Time to Change. Yep. And it's been absolutely everywhere. So if you're not aware of that, check it out.
If you're a manager or a director or in charge, signing the Time to Change pledge is a really good idea. If you're in charge of a business or a department or a director, get it on the agenda wherever you are in terms of, what you're doing, because it does signal to the people that work there that you are signing up to a pledge. So yeah, I fully agree. A pledge that is geared towards equality, relieving discrimination, all of those really good things. And it doesn't cost much to sign up to do those things. Are you with me? Another way that I would like to so that was the first point. Ask again, or, are you sure? Something like that. Just follow it up. Follow your instinct and follow it up. The next one is, whether it's football, cricket, Avengers, or Love Island, begin a conversation around that. I'm really lucky in that it's a really good opener for a conversation there. But the chap I was talking about earlier on during the jiu-jitsu bit, Alan, I bumped into him in the street a couple months ago, and we had a conversation, and it was fine. And I wasn't in a good place. And he texted me later, and he said, "Good to see you, but did I sense a disturbance in the force?" And I thought that was a particularly good one, but Alan's pretty good though. But these sort of things, just having a conversation, maybe that's sort of based around something else that could potentially lead on. So that's really more about sort of having a conversation that, did you watch the match? Did you see the Avengers movie, or, WandaVision, Loki, whatever it is?
That one is going to be heavily reliant on emotional intelligence, isn't it? Because you have to be able to read what that conversation at that time. You need to know what that person is interested in topic wise. So you have to have a bond with them to be able to relate it to a topic that they're more open to talking about. But how would you engage in that with, say, a stranger?
We could talk about something that's more broadly on the sort of agenda, if you like, of the country, or, something that's been happening in the news, or host a conversation, begin a conversation along those lines about, hopefully something that's a bit more positive than the football was, but it was pretty positive at one point. You could have that as a conversation. There is a lot out there that's negative, isn't it? And it'll be really easy to bring up bad stuff about, the pandemic, or about the government and all of this or other sort of stuff, but keeping it general. But then the person that this question came from was really more sort of, because I know them, more sort of in the direction of someone that you know. So what I would like to suggest is, maybe this second point could be just sort of rephrased a little bit, perhaps as talk about something else, talk about an interest, talk about something that could take you into a deeper conversation about something else in the newspaper, in the news, in the public eye, something like that, which will then lay a foundation for a much deeper one at a later point, within the same conversation, if that's possible. But these 5 bits that I'm going to talk about today, it's not one or the other. Point 2 could lead on to point 1. Earlier on when you said that you were fine, are you sure you're okay? After a conversation about the Avengers or the football or the cricket.
So you're saying that that initial conversation kind of opens them up a bit, so they're more likely to open up when you ask them again if they're okay?
I think so. Definitely works for me. So the third one is to show a little bit of vulnerability. And this, I don't know how you feel about this, and I don't know how other people would. I think it depends on the context. And I think it depends on how well and and how much you trust the person. You could say along the lines of, glad you're all right. I'm having a tough time myself, if I'm honest. Or work's been tough lately, hasn't it? Something like that. Showing a little bit of vulnerability it's funny how that works, can help it be sort of reciprocated a little bit. So expressing it, and it helps to remind the other person that you're human too, not just, just not an unfeeling, unthinking person, I suppose. I was going to say NPC there, but I'm not sure if many people would know what I mean by that.
Non-playable character.
Yeah. So, it's really valuable, I think, to get people to open up. It demonstrates a little bit of trust in them, and trust is often reciprocated when you demonstrate trust. So first of all, you're showing a bit of vulnerability. Things have been tough at the moment around the office, haven't they, with everything that's been going on. I'm glad you're all right. I'm not really at the moment, but I'm okay. Are you sure you're okay? And you begin to use some more of those.
I think there's something that I'd tie into that quickly, which is, because I've done it myself. Sometimes I think being vulnerable yourself to get them to open up a little more is a great point. But sometimes you yourself don't have anything vulnerable to open up about.
Exactly.
I've been in that position where I'm actually quite happy what I have. So it's very hard to be vulnerable.
And that was the last point that I was going to make within that. It's got to be authentic. You've got to actually have something to say that you are struggling with at the moment, because otherwise it won't be reciprocated if it just comes across like you're acting. Because
that was what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Should is it okay to, I wouldn't say make up a vulnerability,
but
is it okay to?
No.
So it's not okay under any circumstances, even just to flower something up a little bit to be more.
Now I'm trying to think of if there is a capacity to flower something up to make it all right, so that you can make a connection. But personally, I wouldn't. But then you know how I feel about authenticity. And remember, this isn't a 5-step process. This isn't do the first one, then do the second one, then do the third one, do the fourth one, and do the fifth one. It's not the 5-step process. These are just 5 ideas that I got when I'm talking to people and they ask me this question all the time. It's 5 things that I've come through with. So all I want to really leave people thinking about when it comes to the third one is, a bit of vulnerability. If it feels right, if it's authentic, if it's right to do so. So the next one that I like to put out there, and I wonder how you feel about this one, Tom. I think that you might like this one the best, is got it. Thanks. You know where I am if you need me. What that does is it shows that, yeah, understood, you're fine, right? But if you're ever not, you know where I am. I'm right here. I might even signal a little bit that I've noticed a change and I'm not going to challenge it. You say you're fine. That's great. But you're delivering a frank reminder of, where you are if you're needed. And that can really be valuable. When someone's feeling like alone or low or down or broken, or however we want to term it, got it. You know where I am if you need me. Along those lines. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, no, that's good, especially for people who are someone who's more introverted, maybe someone who it's difficult to get them to open up on the spot. If you just give them a line and let them reach out to you when they're ready, that can often be a good way to put them in control of the conversation and let them talk to you when appropriate for them. Again, I would say it depends on the character of the person, like whether you're dealing with someone who's quite extroverted and outgoing, or whether you're dealing with someone who's a bit more closed off and maybe they need a bit more time to come out with those issues.
Yeah, in which case you might not be the right person for them to talk to. They might not want to open up to you. In which case that's fine. You've done your best. And hopefully there will be someone that they will open up to. So I like that one. I do like that one. Got it. You know where I am if you need me. I use that a lot, but I wonder if that's just my nature to, be supportive, try and be supportive to people without, forcing it on anyone, without being oppressive with it. And I wonder if all of these are very much, I wonder if you were left when we've gone through all of them with a sense that these are sort of more backdoor entries rather than right through the front door, because I always think through the back door is a little bit more subtle. That was a weird metaphor.
To be honest, I end quite a lot of my conversations with, friends or colleagues or whatever. I usually end them with, you know where I am if you need me, or something along those lines. I think it's a good conclusive statement for a conversation, just as a way of keeping the door open, really, and a way of saying, it's a conclusive statement, but it's not, because you're still there if they need you.
Yeah, I've been managing someone for a few years now, and I said this so many times now, that at the end of any one-to-one or any sort of contact we have together, he was always like, "I know where you are if I need you, Chris." He always just ends it with you don't need to say it. Don't worry about me. I know where you are if you need me, because I'll constantly sort of check in and making sure. I don't know. Anyway, so that was that. So got it. You know where I am if you need me, along those sort of lines. And the last one is a little bit linked to the second one. How's work? So when you get back that I'm fine, how's work? Or a variation of that. It's not snoopy, not like being nosy, trying to find out too much information about their life. So might be how's work. It might be how's your week. It might be how was your holiday. All really good open questions to get a conversation rolling. And we've got to remember that, we're not always entering a conversation like this to get an outcome. The outcome might be building trust rather than they're going to go to their GP tomorrow and get cured. Or, my supportive conversation has directed them towards the Samaritans or something like that. It might just be fostering trust. So it might seem like these are really dull questions, but once again, it's what you do with, the responses that you get and the direction that the conversation goes. And you can always guide that conversation towards the topic of well-being. I think you can always, reasonably direct a conversation about how's your week, direct a conversation about how's work, how was your holiday, all of these sort of things about, supportive in terms of well-being, in terms of mental health, self-care, professional help if necessary. All of these sort of things can reasonably be covered. But at the very least, you can, demonstrate interest, real interest in the individual, and build some trust and maybe a bit of rapport. I don't know, but that's something else.
Okay, so here's something I'm going to ask then before we wrap it up, because I think this is probably the last thing, because you've answered that question really well, which would be, how many times do you ask? Because, and this is from my experience, if somebody, or maybe I'll rephrase it to, how many times do you ask if it's clear that that person has something on their mind, but they're not talking about it? Because I've had this in the past, I think, and I've asked and I've asked and I've asked. And obviously you don't want to ask too much, because that's also bad, because they might not be ready to talk about it. And if you keep asking, that's quite intrusive. So I will usually try asking a few times, and then I'll just end it with, well, you know where I am if you need me, something like that, and then put the ball in their court. So is that what you would advocate? Yeah,
that's absolutely perfect. Because I think if you go beyond that, you become badgering and nagging. I don't think there is necessarily a right. I mean, these are 5 tips that I'm throwing out there. This is not like a recipe. This is not a precise recipe. There is no right or wrong way, I think, as long as it comes from a place of authenticity and care and concern. And to answer your question, I think your deployment of a few of these together at once, like you described, was absolutely perfect. It leaves the person knowing that you'll be a supportive ear if and when necessary. And provided whatever you get back, you're always sort of non-judgmental about and open-minded about in terms of where the conversation goes, then I think it can generally go to a supportive therapeutic place.